Hello and welcome to the Better in Business podcast. We are on to number 5 in the 7-part series on business fundamentals. So we are going to jump into the cash flow scene around inventory. This is going to be pretty easy. It's going to be fast and furious, but it is impactful. It's designed to help you do better in business. You cannot avoid this stuff, my friends. You must commit to building your education around business fundamentals, around numbers. Okay. Now, if you haven't listened to the first 4, you have to do that. It's going to make sense of this podcast and it is going to allow you to get educated. And all of this is built for the busy, multitasking mum, dad, and entrepreneur. So no excuses. You can listen while you're driving. You can speed me up if that helps. Let's dive into the episode now. You've tuned into the Better in Business podcast, and I'm your host, Jeannie Savage. I'm a multi-award winning business veteran and head of the Strategic Bookkeeper Network. My network of strategic bookkeepers is dedicated to helping entrepreneurs do better in business. This podcast aims to challenge your thinking. If you're not thinking the right way, how can you act the right way? Each episode will dive into key drivers of success, which I also call the rules of the game. Learn the rules and play to win. Let's go. I like to start every episode by reminding you that it is globally recognized that pillar number 1 for success is up-to-date, accurate bookkeeping, which is the only way you can see how your business is performing in terms of profit and cash. If your books aren't right up to date, visit betterinbusiness.global, drop me a line and I'll connect you with a certified strategic bookkeeper. Fire your bookkeeper and hire a strategic bookkeeper. Bookkeeping is a cost, whereas strategic bookkeeping is an investment that averages a 10x return on the fees. Okay, so the 7 deadly cash flow sin around inventory is only going to make enough sense or easy sense if you've listened to the first 4. So please go back and do that. The first one's only 20 minutes. The other 3 are only about 10 minutes. Okay, so let's dive into that now. So I'm going to refer to my business fundamentals training slide that I'm looking at here around inventory. And I grew up in inventory, my friends. I was raised by iconic entrepreneurs who grew an iconic retail little empire before selling it to a public company. And it's kind of where I did my apprenticeship in all things business, which I'm so grateful for today as I really, understand the impact that had on me and my business acumen. So inventory, do you sell products or inventory? Are you selling your stock and collecting the money before you pay your suppliers? Yeah. So if you are selling your stock and collecting the money before you ever have to pay out, we're going back to that one that we talked about in receivables and payables in the last 2 episodes. We're really talking about getting the money from your customers before you pay for the stock. Yeah. So this episode is going to be short, sharp, and furious because when you've listened to the other ones, this is going to make sense, okay? So if you're collecting money from your customers before you have to pay for the stock, you can score yourself 1. That's perfect. If you are, from time to time or a lot of the time or whatever it is, collecting the money from the customer after you've got to pay for that stock, score yourself a 0 because you now have a cash flow gap. You now have cash flow pain. Now, there are a few different ways in which you might be selling inventory. So one is that you actually have a business where you're in the business of selling things. So I was shopping the other day and I went into this gorgeous store that sells primarily homewares, and it was my friend Kelly running it. So Kelly is in the business of selling things, right? She's selling glorious homewares. Yeah. So you might be in the business of selling things. Yeah. I've had other clients who sell bikinis that they get manufactured and they wholesale and they retail. So whether you are wholesaling, retailing, another client who sold scooters. So if you're selling inventory, and I grew up in electrical retail where we sold, stereos and fridges and that kind of thing, then you're selling inventory. And when you're selling inventory, my goodness, there's a whole nother layer of financial management that is required. Okay. So the other area that you might be selling inventory is that if you are, for example, a tradie and you have to buy materials to do the job, then in effect, you are buying inventory okay, that makes up part of what you sell to your clients, because you're selling material and service, okay? And the same will apply to many other industries, for example, hairdressing, where they're selling their service, but they're also selling the products in the shop. So you'll either be selling inventory, you'll be selling services, which is primarily your time, but I'd love to at some stage get into how the service industry is moving to also sell something beyond time, and hopefully you're productizing that too. Or if, for example, you're a real estate agent doesn't sell their time, but they work in a service industry. A real estate agent is a great example of an entrepreneur who sells an outcome. Okay, and if you're in the service industry like I am in bookkeeping and strategic bookkeeping, definitely I want you to think about for a moment, are you selling your time? Yeah, because that's not ideal. Or are you selling an outcome? Yeah, in my bookkeeping practice, which has been around for 14 years, it's been around since a time where very much we used to kind of trade our time for money. But these days, we absolutely want to trade outcomes for money, okay? That's how I talk about the strategic bookkeeping methodology, the system, yeah? It's an investment because you tend to get about 10 times the fee you pay for it. And what we want to really sell you is an outcome. Yeah, we want to be helping you to optimize your business performance, your prosperity, your peace of mind, and so on. So if you are in a service-based business, which is often professional services, health services, even trade services, I want you to think about the fact that it is much smarter to learn to sell an outcome and a benefit than it is to trade your time for money. And this podcast is not primarily about that, but it's very relevant to that. Okay, so then going back a step, so you're selling inventory, you're selling services, or you're selling a mix of products and services. Okay, so you exist in one of those businesses, and right now you can take the time to categorize yourself into one of those. Okay, so in this case, I might just use a hairdresser as an example, but I might also tell you a little story. So a client I was working with once, and they were running a restaurant, and then they were looking to open like a Whole Foods retailer. And they said to me that one of the things they liked about the Whole Foods retailer concept is that a lot of the food they would buy had a long shelf life, and therefore they wouldn't have to worry about it spoiling before they sold it. Now, as a strategic bookkeeper and devil's advocate, quickly I identified that if they were going to leave that stock on the shelf, they were probably going to pay for it before the customer ever paid them. And they weren't a bank, and they hadn't organized an overdraft to fund what could be a massive gap in the customer ever buying the stock, after they have paid the supplier. So where they saw a positive, I saw a risk that needs to be registered and mitigated with something, whether it's an overdraft. Usually what it is, like if we were going deep into inventory, when you're looking at buying, so one of my closest friends, Candice, I call her Candy, she has been a very high-end buyer. I would go as far as to say she'd be in the top percentages Australia-wide. And in terms of buying inventory and the managing of the buying cycle, a part of what they do is very much in the finance space, because it's seasonal buying. It's buying stock that will be sold in time for the business to be getting the returns it needs to get. Okay, so inventory, like I said, if you sell inventory, you've got a whole nother layer of kind of financial stuff going on. So I know that all of that may have sounded a bit overwhelming. So I'm going to come back to say that your numbers knowledge, your numbers acumen doesn't develop overnight or in 2 seconds or a week or a month. It develops over years of working in business and working with an ideal team, which includes a strategic bookkeeper. Okay, there is a magic that will happen over time, and I see it happen all the time. Okay, so going back to the hairdresser as an example, because we've got the mix of products and services. Okay, so let's say we've got a hairdresser and she opens a shop with a dream in her heart, and she starts to do the services, and she's charging out what she thinks is a reasonable rate for the services, and that's a time for money model. She hasn't really productized. She's not thinking about selling an outcome. She's just really trading her time for money and doing hairdressing services. But she also needs to, and she wants to, she's passionate about selling her clients really great hair products, to complement the service she offers. So she goes along and she buys all those products, and her supplier says, well, you're new in business and we don't offer accounts to people that are new in business, so you'll have to pay for all of that stock up front, but don't worry, we'll come in, we'll put it on the shelf, we'll make it look pretty. You love the stock, you love everything that we sell, so you're going to be so excited and so happy to have all this stock. So the hairdresser hands over her credit card with a dream in her heart, and she gets this gorgeous display full of this beautiful shampoos and conditioners and so on in her gorgeous looking salon, and it is very exciting. And then her clients are coming in and she's doing the service and she sells some of it, but not all of it. And then the month rolls around and she has to pay her credit card, otherwise she's going to incur high interest charges, which is profit bleeding. And what she doesn't think about is the fact that she has paid the supplier on day one for that stock. Okay, so let's say she paid out $10,000 for that. Then on day 30, she's sold 50% of the stock. So she's got $5,000 worth of stock there that she's having to fund, so to speak, or oftentimes you've sold even less. What this hairdresser doesn't know, that I want to just kind of scratch the surface of you knowing, is about what we call stock turns. So we need to turn over the stock, in a time frame which ideally is before we ever pay the supplier. And in the business that my parents ran, the buyers, the logistic managers were very good at that. And so we always had massive positive cash flow and millions in the bank because we never paid the suppliers before we sold the stock, because the buyers were onto that, because we had a winning team to win the game. Okay, so I don't want to rattle on and on about this. I want to come back to how to score yourself and how to take action. So if you're a business that doesn't sell any stock, this is still great education for you, but it may not apply to you. If you're a business that sells a mix of products and services, like materials and services, or like the hairdresser, okay, so usually it's trades, people like hairdressers, beauty therapists, or you've got the actual inventory selling people, you're selling scooters, you're selling bikinis, you're selling whatever you're selling, then you need to ask yourself, oh, goodness gracious, okay, do I pay my suppliers ever before I sell the stock? That's a 0. Or, okay, am I nailing inventory? Always pay my suppliers after my customers pay me. That's a 1, okay? So what are you going to do if you're committing this deadly sin? Well, you're going to go about looking at what you need to do. And I'll always say that you need a winning team to win the game. And that includes considering whether, as well as hiring a strategic bookkeeper, you need a bit of help around this buying and logistics part of what you do. You definitely need to consider that this sin is closely linked to the payable sin that you just heard about, because this is about the money that you're paying out to suppliers. So go back to your suppliers, because your success is their success, and negotiate better terms, okay? Absolutely. Talk to your strategic bookkeeper, just like I said in the other episodes in this series, and I'll see you in the next episode. I hope you enjoyed that episode as much as I enjoyed recording it. I would love to help you start doing better in business right now by giving you a free little ebook. It's a how-to guide. It's called The 7 Deadly Cash Flow Sins. And also I've developed a business health check for you. It's super high value. Both are available at betterinbusiness.global. If you would like to fire your bookkeeper and hire a strategic bookkeeper to start enjoying a return on investment and get the support you need to optimize your business cash and profit and time wealth, simply visit betterinbusiness.global, drop me a line, and I'll connect you with a certified strategic bookkeeper near you. I'll see you in the next episode.